I was folding laundry in my living room when my phone rang. The bank's fraud department. My stomach dropped before the woman even spoke. Mrs. Patterson, we're seeing unusual activity on your account. Someone attempted to charge $102,000 at Bloomingdale's 20 minutes ago. My hands went numb. I hadn't left the house all day. We declined the transaction, she continued. But ma'am, they're using your physical card. Do you have your wallet? I looked at my purse. My wallet was there, but my emergency credit card was gone. My fingers trembled as I dumped the entire contents of my purse onto the coffee table while the fraud specialist waited on the line. Lipstick, tissues, receipts, my reading glasses, my main wallet. Everything scattered across the worn fabric of the couch Harold and I had picked out 15 years ago. I opened my wallet with shaking hands. Driver's license, check. Debit card, check. My everyday MasterCard, check. But the high-limit Visa I kept tucked in the hidden zipper pocket for true emergencies was gone. Ma'am, are you still there? The woman asked. Yes, I'm here. My emergency credit card is missing, the one with the high limit. My voice didn't sound like my own. Can you tell me the last time you saw it? I closed my eyes, trying to remember. 3 days ago, Tuesday. My son was here visiting. Did you authorize anyone to use this card? No, absolutely not. Mrs. Patterson, the attempted purchase was at Bloomingdale's in Stamford. That's the store location. Do you know anyone who might have access to your card? Stamford, 20 minutes from my house in suburban Connecticut. My chest tightened. Where exactly in Stamford? She gave me the address. I knew that mall. Brandon and Amber lived 15 minutes from there. We flagged your account and declined the transaction. We're issuing a new card immediately. But ma'am, if someone has your physical card, you should file a police report. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. Brandon had been here Tuesday afternoon. He'd asked to borrow $5,000 for car repairs. I'd said no. I'd told him he and Amber needed to learn to budget, to stop living beyond their means. He'd been angry when he left. I remembered the way he'd slammed my front door. But surely not. Surely my own son wouldn't steal from me. The phone rang again. Susan from next door. Eliza, I saw your curtains moving. Are you okay? Can you come over? She was at my door in 3 minutes, still wearing her gardening gloves. Susan had been my neighbor for 12 years, my closest friend since Harold died. I told her everything. Oh, honey, she said, putting her arm around my shoulders. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but I saw Brandon here on Tuesday. After he left, he sat in his car for a while, looking at something in his hands. Then Amber pulled up in her car, and he handed her something small before they both drove off together. The room tilted. What time was this? Around 3:30, maybe 4. That was right after Brandon left, right after our argument about money. I grabbed my car keys. Where are you going? Susan asked. Bloomingdale's. I need to know what happened. The drive took 18 minutes. Normally I'm a careful driver, but today I pressed the speed limit, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Brandon was my oldest son. I'd raised him mostly on my own before I married Harold when Brandon was 12. I'd worked 2 jobs to put him through college, given him everything I had. He'd married Amber 2 years ago, and I'll admit, I'd never warmed to her. Something about the way she looked at things, calculating their worth. The way she posted constantly on social media about designer handbags and luxury vacations, while Brandon made $70,000 a year as a sales manager. But theft? From his own mother? The mall parking lot was half full. I found the Bloomingdale's entrance and went straight to customer service. I need to speak to your security department. Someone tried to use my stolen credit card here today. The young woman at the counter made a call, and within minutes, a security supervisor appeared. His name tag read Marcus Chen. Wait, I can't use Chen. Let me reconsider. His name tag read Tom Berkeley. I explained the situation. He asked me to follow him to the security office. Mrs. Patterson, we can confirm there was an attempted purchase about 45 minutes ago. The transaction was declined by the card issuer's fraud department. The customer became quite upset. Can you tell me what they tried to buy? He pulled up the transaction on his computer. A television, 75-inch. 2 laptop computers. An espresso machine. Multiple designer handbags. clothing from several departments. Perfumes, expensive ones, imported. The total came to $102,317. My life savings, Harold's life insurance. The nest egg we'd built over 30 years of marriage. Someone had tried to spend it on television and perfume. Can you describe the person who tried to use my card? Tom hesitated. Let me pull up the security footage. He typed on his keyboard, and a video appeared on the screen. The timestamp showed 39 minutes ago. I watched a young woman with long blonde hair pushing a shopping cart overflowing with boxes and bags. She wore designer sunglasses perched on her head and carried a handbag I recognized. A Gucci bag Amber had posted about on Instagram last month, saying it was her dream bag. It was Amber, my daughter-in-law. That's my son's wife, I whispered. Tom looked at me with sympathy. I'm sorry. Would you like to see the rest? I nodded, unable to speak. The video continued. Amber at the register, confident, laughing with the cashier scanning items, the total climbing on the screen. Then Amber pulling out a credit card. My credit card. The cashier swiping it. A pause. The cashier frowning at the screen, then picking up the phone. Amber's smile fading. The cashier shaking her head. Amber's face transforming into fury, her mouth moving in what were clearly angry words. Tom turned up the audio. Try it again. Amber's voice came through clearly. Ma'am, the card has been declined. The system won't let me process it. That's impossible. There's money on this card. I'm sorry, but I can't override the decline. You'll need to use another form of payment. This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am? A store manager appeared in the frame, and Tom fast-forwarded through several minutes of Amber arguing before finally storming away from the register, abandoning the cart. Did she leave? I asked. Yes. We have footage of her exiting the store. He paused. Mrs. Patterson, there's something else you should see. He rewound the video before Amber reached the register. The camera showed her at the entrance of the store, pulling out her phone. A minute later, a man entered the frame. Tall, brown hair, wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Brandon, my son. They stood together near the perfume counter, talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I watched as Brandon reached into his pocket and pulled out a credit card. My credit card. He handed it to Amber. Tom increased the volume. Brandon's voice came through the speaker, clear as day. Sweetheart, use Mom's card. She's got about $150,000 on it. Amber giggled. Are you sure she won't notice? She's got so much money she won't even miss it. And if she does, we'll just say she's getting forgetful. She's 67. People will believe it. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Tom's hand appeared in my peripheral vision, holding a tissue box. I took one and pressed it to my eyes. We called the police after the incident, Tom said quietly. They're investigating. Would you like me to call them back here? I nodded, not trusting my voice. 2 police officers arrived within 20 minutes. I gave my statement, showed them my identification, confirmed that I had not authorized anyone to use my card. They took notes, asked questions, and told me they'd follow up. One of them, Officer Janet Riley, put her hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry you're going through this. Family cases are always the hardest. I drove home in a daze. Susan was waiting on my porch, and when she saw my face, she simply opened her arms. I collapsed into them and cried. My phone rang. Brandon. I pulled away from Susan and stared at the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it, but anger flared hot in my chest. I answered. Mom, before you freak out, let me explain. Explain? My voice came out sharper than I'd ever spoken to him. Explain how you stole my credit card? Explain how you gave it to your wife? Explain how you told her to spend over $100,000 of my money? Silence on the other end. Then, how did you know about that? The bank called me, Brandon. They stopped the transaction. I went to the store. I saw the security footage. I heard you. I heard every word you said. Mom, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Because what I think is that my son, the boy I raised, the child I worked 2 jobs for, stole from me. His tone shifted, became defensive. You have plenty of money. Dad left you everything. Meanwhile, Amber and I are struggling to make ends meet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You make $70,000 a year, Brandon. That's more than I ever made working 2 jobs. That's nothing nowadays. Do you know what things cost? Amber deserves nice things. She grew up with nice things. Then you should have thought about that before you married someone whose expectations exceed your income. Wow. That's what you really think of her, isn't it? You've never liked Amber. You've never thought she was good enough for me. This isn't about whether I like her. This is about you stealing from your own mother. I wasn't stealing. I was going to pay you back. With what money, Brandon? You just said you're struggling. He was quiet for a moment. You're supposed to help your children. What kind of mother are you? Those words hit like a slap. What kind of mother am I? I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay me? You know what? I can't do this right now. We'll talk when you've calmed down. Don't you dare hang up on me. Come to my house. Right now. I can't right now. Brandon, you will come here. Or I'm calling the police back and pressing charges. Fine. We'll be there in an hour. He hung up. I looked at Susan. They're coming here. Do you want me to stay? No. This is something I need to face alone. But thank you. After Susan left, I paced my living room, rehearsing what I'd say. But when the doorbell rang 53 minutes later, all my prepared words evaporated. Amber stood on my porch in designer clothes, her hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. Brandon stood beside her, his jaw tight. "Hello, Eliza," Amber said. She'd never called me Mom, not once in 2 years of marriage. "Give me my credit card back." "What credit card?" Amber's eyes widened in false innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I saw the security footage. You tried to spend $100,000 at Bloomingdale's with my card. I think you're confused." Brandon put his hand on Amber's arm. "Mom, let's talk about this calmly." "Calmly? You stole from me, Brandon. Let us in, and we'll discuss this." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. They walked into my living room, and I noticed Amber's eyes scanning the space, lingering on my television, my furniture, the framed photos on the mantel. "You have a beautiful home," she said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite name. "So much space for just one person." "Amber," I said, keeping my voice level, "I know you tried to use my card today. The store has footage. The police have been called. This isn't going to go away by pretending it didn't happen." She turned to face me fully, and her expression transformed. The innocent act dropped away, replaced by something cold and calculating. "You know what your problem is, Eliza? You're selfish. You sit in this big house with all that money while your son works himself to death trying to provide for his family. I earned this house. I earned that money. Harold and I built this life together. Harold is dead," she said flatly, "and you're hoarding his money like some kind of dragon sitting on gold. Do you know what people say about you? That you changed after he died. That you became stingy." Brandon didn't defend me. He just stood there, arms crossed, nodding along with her words. "Brandon," I said, turning to him, "are you going to let her talk to me like this?" "She's right, Mom. You have changed. You refuse to help us. We asked you to co-sign on a house loan 6 months ago, and you said no. We ask for help with bills, and you say no. You drive a new car. You take vacations, but you won't help your own son. I drive a 3-year-old Honda Civic. I took one trip last year to visit Margaret, and I said no to co-signing because you have $40,000 in credit card debt. You're not ready for a mortgage." "See?" Amber gestured at me. "This is exactly what I mean, judging us, looking down on us. Meanwhile, you're sitting on $150,000 in a savings account doing nothing. How do you know how much money I have?" They exchanged a glance. Brandon had been going through my mail, my financial statements, my privacy violated in ways I was only beginning to understand. Amber stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us $100,000. Call it an early inheritance. Call it a gift. Call it whatever you want. I'm not giving you anything. Think carefully, Eliza. We can make this whole thing go away. You give us the money, we drop this situation, everyone moves on happy. You tried to steal from me, and now you're demanding money?" Brandon spoke up. "We wouldn't have to steal if you just helped us willingly. This is your fault, Mom. You forced us into this position." I stared at my son, barely recognizing him. "When did you become this person?" "I became this person when my own mother chose money over family." "I chose nothing over family. You chose crime over asking for help properly." Amber laughed. Actually laughed. "You want to talk about crime? Go ahead, call the police, press charges, see what happens." "I already spoke to the police." Her smile didn't waver. "And did they arrest us? Did they take us away in handcuffs?" "They're investigating. Let me tell you what's going to happen, Eliza. You're going to press charges against your own son, your only family. And do you know what happens then? Brandon tells everyone how you've been acting since Harold died, how you're paranoid, how you're forgetting things, how you accuse the gardener of stealing, how you think the neighbors are plotting against you. That's not true. None of that is true. Doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is who people believe. And Brandon is your son, your devoted, loving son who's so worried about his aging mother. Meanwhile, you're the elderly widow living alone in a big house, clearly struggling with grief and possible cognitive decline." My hands started shaking. "You've been planning this." "We've been planning our future," Brandon said. "A future where we're not struggling while you live in comfort." "I'm calling my lawyer." I reached for my phone on the coffee table. Brandon moved faster than I expected for someone his size. He grabbed it from my hand. "Don't do that, Mom. Don't make this worse than it has to be. Give me my phone." "Not until you agree to think about our offer. $100,000. That's all we're asking. You'll still have $50,000 left. That's more than enough for you." "Give me my phone, Brandon. Think about it for a few days. We'll come back on Saturday. You can give us your answer then." He pocketed my phone. My phone. His 6-foot frame towered over my 5 feet 4 inches as he moved toward the door. I felt simultaneously angry and afraid, a combination I'd never experienced with my own child before. Amber paused at the door. "Oh, and Eliza? If you try to make trouble for us, things could get very difficult for you. Brandon is your son. Tyler will side with him. Margaret will believe him. Who do you think everyone will believe when it comes down to it? The devoted son or the confused old woman?" They left, and I stood in my living room, shaking. I tried to lock the door behind them, but my hands were trembling so badly it took 3 tries to turn the deadbolt. I called Susan from my landline. "They took my phone," I told her, "and they're blackmailing me." "Oh, Eliza, I'm coming over." "No, I just need to think." But I couldn't think. I couldn't focus. I walked through my house, checking windows, checking locks, feeling unsafe in the home Harold and I had shared for 20 years. I needed to go out, to clear my head. I grabbed my purse and keys and headed to the grocery store, needing to be around other people, in a bright public space where I could feel normal again. I was gone for 47 minutes. When I returned home, my front door was unlocked. I knew, absolutely knew, I had locked it before I left. I always locked it. 30 years of living as a woman alone, and locking doors was as automatic as breathing. I stood on my porch, key in hand, staring at the unlocked door. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pulled out my cell phone to call 911 before remembering Brandon had taken it. I went to Susan's house instead. She called the police from her phone. Officer Riley returned, this time with a male partner, Officer Davis. I explained about the unlocked door. They entered my house with me and did a walkthrough. "Mrs. Patterson, do you notice anything missing or disturbed?" Officer Riley asked. We walked through the living room, the kitchen, the bedrooms. Everything looked normal until we reached my home office. File cabinet drawers were open. Papers were scattered on the desk, not how I'd left them. Harold's old desk had been rifled through. "My laptop," I said. "It was on the desk. It's gone." Officer Davis wrote this down. "What else?" I looked around more carefully. The external hard drive. It was plugged into the laptop. That's gone too. We continued searching. Some financial documents were missing from the file cabinet. Nothing else seemed disturbed. Officer Riley asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you something. Is there anyone else who has a key to your home?" My stomach sank. "My sons. Both of them have emergency keys." "Including Brandon?" "Yes." The officers exchanged a glance. Officer Riley spoke gently. "Ma'am, if someone has a key and uses it to enter your home, Technically, that's not breaking and entering in the legal sense. But he doesn't live here. He doesn't have permission to just come in when I'm not home. I understand. But without forced entry, and with him being family with a key, this becomes more complicated. It's a civil matter more than a criminal one. He stole my laptop. We'll file a report, and we'll follow up on the credit card fraud. But I have to be honest with you, Mrs. Patterson. Family disputes like this can be very difficult to prosecute. After they left, I sat at my kitchen table feeling utterly defeated. That's when my landline rang. Tyler, my younger son, calling from his home 2 states away. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" "Brandon just called me crying, saying you're accusing him of theft. He says you've lost it since Dad died." "Tyler, he did steal from me. He took my credit card and gave it to Amber. They tried to spend over $100,000. "That's insane, Mom. Brandon wouldn't do that. I saw the security footage. I heard him tell Amber to use my card. Maybe you're misunderstanding what you saw. Maybe he had your permission and you forgot." "I didn't forget. I'm not senile." "I didn't say you were senile. But Mom, grief can do strange things to people. And you've been alone in that big house for 3 years now. Brandon says you've been acting paranoid. That you accused him of things before." "What? I never accused him of anything before this. He says you thought he was stealing food from your pantry last month, and that you accused Amber of taking one of your necklaces when she was just admiring it. None of that was true. None of it. Brandon was creating a narrative, planting seeds with Tyler, preparing for this exact moment. Tyler, none of that happened. He's lying to you." "Why would he lie? He's your son, Mom. He loves you." "If he loves me, why did he steal from me?" Tyler sighed, a long, tired sound. "I think you need to talk to someone. A doctor, maybe. Or a therapist. This paranoia isn't healthy." "I'm not paranoid." "Then why are you making these accusations? Brandon and Amber are struggling financially. They don't have money for fancy shopping sprees." "Tyler, please, you have to believe me." "I want to believe you, Mom, but this just doesn't make sense. Look, I need to go, but please, think about getting some help, for your own sake." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in hand, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. My own son didn't believe me. Susan came over an hour later with groceries. "I thought you might need some company," she said, unpacking bags of food I didn't remember needing. We sat together going through what had been taken from my office. The laptop had all my financial records. The external hard drive was my backup. Some papers with account numbers, passwords written down the way Harold always told me not to do, but I did anyway because I could never remember them all. "You need to change all your passwords," Susan said, "and call your bank. Tell them someone has access to your account information." "I will. Tomorrow. I can't deal with any more today." Susan made us tea, and we sat at my kitchen table like we'd done hundreds of times over the years. Normal, except nothing was normal anymore. "Eliza, I need to show you something." Susan pulled out her phone. "Amber posted this on Facebook an hour ago." She turned the screen to face me. Amber's post showed a photo of her and Brandon, arms around each other, both looking somber. The caption read, "Heartbroken today. Sometimes the people you love most turn on you." We've tried so hard to help family members who are struggling with paranoia and aging issues, but all we get is accusations and hatred. Praying for healing and understanding. Family first. So sad. The post had 37 likes and 23 comments, all supportive. "She's telling everyone I'm crazy," I whispered. Susan scrolled through the comments. People Amber knew. People Brandon knew. Some people I knew. All of them offering sympathy, saying how hard it must be, suggesting memory care facilities, talking about how difficult aging parents can be. Not one person had reached out to me. My sister Margaret called while Susan was still there. I could tell from Margaret's tone before she even finished her hello that Brandon had gotten to her too. "Eliza, I just got a very disturbing call from Brandon." "Margaret, before you say anything, let me tell you what really happened. He told me you're showing signs of dementia, that you forgot you gave him permission to use your credit card, and now you're accusing him of theft." "That's not true. I never gave him permission." "Eliza, honey, you know memory issues can sneak up on us. After Harold died, you went through that depression. Maybe it's affecting you more than you realize." I'm not depressed, and I don't have memory issues. Brandon says you're getting confused, mixing up events. He's worried about you living alone in that big house. He thinks you might need some help, maybe a companion, or assisted living. Margaret, I'm 67 years old, not 90, and I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life. Are you sure? Because Brandon painted a very different picture. And honey, you have to admit, accusing your own son of theft seems extreme. I saw the security footage. I heard him tell Amber to use my card. Are you absolutely certain that's what you saw? Sometimes our minds can play tricks on us, especially when we're stressed and grieving. Even my own sister doubted me. My eyes filled with tears, and Susan grabbed my hand. I have to go, I told Margaret and hung up. They're systematically destroying my credibility, I said to Susan. By the time this is over, everyone will think I'm losing my mind. I needed evidence, real, concrete evidence that would prove I was telling the truth. The next morning, after a sleepless night, I drove back to Bloomingdale's. The store manager, a woman named Patricia, listened to my request to see the security footage again. I'm sorry, Mrs. Patterson. We've already provided that footage to the police as part of their investigation. I can't show it to customers, even if it involves you. But it's my credit card, my case. I understand, but that's evidence now. The police have to handle it. I really am sorry. I left feeling defeated and drove to my bank. Miss Patricia Walsh, the manager I'd worked with for 15 years, greeted me warmly. Eliza, I heard about the fraud attempt on your account. I'm so sorry that happened. Can you help me understand the bank's position on this? What happens now? Patricia pulled up my account on her computer. Well, the good news is the transaction was declined. You're not liable for any charges since no money actually left your account. We've issued you a new card. It should arrive in 3 to 5 business days. But what about the attempted theft? Don't you investigate that? The police investigate theft. From the bank's perspective, our fraud detection system worked. It prevented the unauthorized transaction. There's no financial loss. But my son took my card. Patricia's expression shifted to one of sympathy and discomfort. Eliza, that's a family matter. That's between you and the police and possibly an attorney. I realized then that because no money had actually been stolen, this wasn't as urgent to anyone as it was to me. The bank was satisfied that their system had worked. The police saw it as a family dispute. Without actual financial loss, who would take this seriously? I left the bank and drove to a law office I'd passed many times, but never entered. A young attorney named Jason Miller agreed to see me for a consultation. I told him everything. Mrs. Patterson, I'm very sorry this is happening to you, but I need to be honest. This is complicated. He's your son. Pressing charges could tear your family apart permanently. Are you prepared for that? He already tore it apart when he stole from me. I understand. But here's the problem. Nothing was actually stolen. The charge was declined. The card was in his possession temporarily, but you don't have it back to prove how he got it. Without the physical card or actual financial loss, building a criminal case is going to be difficult. So he just gets away with it? I didn't say that, but you need evidence. You need that card. You need documentation. You need witnesses. Right now, it's your word against his, and he's already building a narrative that you're confused. I left his office feeling more hopeless than when I'd arrived. The legal system was supposed to protect people like me, but all I was hearing was how difficult this would be. I returned home in the late afternoon, exhausted and defeated. My front door was ajar. I froze on the porch. I knew, absolutely knew, I had locked that door before I left. I'd checked it twice. I pushed the door open slowly, terrified of what I'd find. The destruction was immediate and shocking. Greedy spray painted in black on my living room wall in huge letters. Family photos smashed on the floor, glass everywhere. Harold's favorite chair slashed, stuffing spilling out. His bookshelf toppled, books scattered. I walked through the house in a daze. The kitchen was untouched. The bedrooms were fine. But in the living room, where Harold and I had spent our evenings, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where we'd mourned and loved, everything was destroyed. And then I saw it. The mantel. Harold's urn, the beautiful mahogany urn with his ashes, knocked over, the lid off. The ashes spilled across the floor, ground into the carpet like someone had walked through them. I fell to my knees and screamed. Not a scream of fear, but of anguish so deep it came from somewhere I didn't know existed. Harold's ashes, his physical remains, the last piece of him I had. Desecrated. I don't know how long I knelt there, crying, before I managed to call Susan. She was there in minutes, and when she saw what had been done, she cried too. The police came again, photographed the damage, asked questions I could barely answer. They found the empty spray paint can in my trash bin outside. They dusted it for fingerprints. Mrs. Patterson, Officer Riley said gently, I need to ask, is there any chance you might have done this yourself, during a moment of stress or confusion? I looked at her with tears streaming down my face. You think I spray painted my own wall? Destroyed my own husband's ashes? I'm just asking. Sometimes people in crisis do things they don't remember. I didn't do this. My son did this. Or his wife. Or someone they hired. But there's no forced entry again. And with him having a key, I looked at the word greedy on my wall, at Harold's ashes ground into the carpet, at the ruins of my life. They thought I'd done this to myself. They thought I was crazy. After everyone left, I sat in the darkness of my destroyed living room and wondered how things had gotten so bad so fast. 5 days ago, I'd been a normal person living a normal life. Now I was the subject of a police investigation. My family thought I was losing my mind, and my home had been violated in the cruelest way possible. I looked at Harold's photo, one of the few that hadn't been smashed. I don't know what to do, I whispered to him. I don't know how to fix this. The next morning, a courier delivered legal documents to my door. I signed for them with shaking hands and opened the envelope. Petition for restraining order. Petitioners, Brandon Patterson and Amber Patterson. Respondent, Eliza Patterson. I read through the document 3 times, unable to process what I was seeing. They were seeking a restraining order against me. Against me. The petition claimed I had been harassing them, that I had shown up at their home unannounced, making wild accusations, that I had sent threatening text messages, that I was exhibiting signs of mental instability and paranoia, that they feared for their safety given my increasingly erratic behavior. A temporary restraining order had already been granted. I was prohibited from going within 500 feet of them or their residence. A court hearing was scheduled for the following week. I called Jason Miller immediately. They beat you to it, he said after I read him the petition. This is a tactical move, Mrs. Patterson. They're flipping the script, making themselves the victims and you the aggressor. But none of this is true. I didn't send any threatening messages. What messages are they claiming you sent? I don't know. It doesn't give details. It just says threatening texts over the past week. Do you have your phone? No, Brandon took it. He has my phone. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mrs. Patterson, if he has your phone, he could be sending messages from your number. The realization hit me like ice water. He's texting himself. From my phone, making it look like I'm threatening him. That would be my guess. At the hearing, they'll likely present these texts as evidence. You'll need to prove they weren't actually from you, which is going to be difficult if they came from your phone number. What do? You show up at the hearing with your own evidence. The security footage from Bloomingdale's. The police reports. Anything that shows your version of events. The store won't give me the footage. They said it's evidence for the police investigation. Then we'll subpoena it for the hearing. I'll file the paperwork today. In the meantime, do not go anywhere near Brandon or Amber. Don't call them. Don't text them. Don't try to contact them in any way. You need to follow that temporary order to the letter. After I hung up, my landline rang again. Tyler. Mom, Brandon just told me about the restraining order. He showed me text messages you sent him. Mom, you threatened them. Tyler, I didn't send those messages. Brandon has my phone. He's sending messages to himself from my phone to frame me. There was a long silence. Mom, do you hear yourself? You're saying Brandon stole your phone and is framing you. That's a pretty elaborate conspiracy theory. It's not a theory. It's what's happening. Brandon sent me screenshots. I'm looking at them right now. They're from your phone number, sent over the past week. I know what you're planning. You've always been ungrateful. I'm watching you. You'll regret crossing me. Mom, these sound threatening. I never sent those. Tyler, please, you have to believe me. I want to believe you. But this is getting scary. Brandon is afraid of you. Amber is afraid of you. They had to get a restraining order. And now you're claiming some vast conspiracy against you? It's not a conspiracy. Brandon stole from me, and now he's covering it up by making everyone think I'm crazy. Or maybe you're having some kind of mental health crisis and you need help. Mom, please, talk to a doctor. Get evaluated. This isn't normal. He hung up. My own son, the child I'd read bedtime stories to, who'd called me every Sunday without fail, who'd held my hand at Harold's funeral, didn't believe me. Even Susan seemed worried when she came over that afternoon. Eliza, I love you. You know I do. But you've been under tremendous stress since Harold died. And now all of this with Brandon. Maybe it would be good to talk to someone, a therapist, just to help you process everything. I don't need a therapist, Susan. I need people to believe me. I do believe you, but I'm also worried about you. You haven't been sleeping. You're not eating properly. This stress is taking a toll. Of course it is. My son is gaslighting me and turning everyone against me. Susan put her hand on mine. What if you're wrong? What if there's been some misunderstanding? I pulled my hand away. You don't believe me either. I didn't say that. I just think maybe there's more going on here than you realize. Stress and grief can affect us in ways we don't always recognize. After she left, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. Even my best friend was starting to doubt me. The next day, 2 police officers and a woman I didn't know appeared at my door. The woman introduced herself as Miss Linda Torres, a social worker. Mrs. Patterson, we've received concerns about your welfare. Your family has reported that you're experiencing mental health issues and may be a danger to yourself or others. We're here to do a wellness check. I'm fine. This is all part of their plan to make me look crazy. May we come in? Miss Torres's voice was kind but firm. I let them in, and they walked through my house. They saw the spray-painted wall that I hadn't been able to afford to have fixed yet. They saw Harold's ashes still scattered on the floor because I couldn't bring myself to touch them. They saw my unmade bed, the dishes in the sink, the disarray of a person who'd stopped taking care of basic things. Mrs. Patterson, when did you last eat a proper meal? Miss Torres asked. I tried to remember. Yesterday, I think, or the day before. And sleep? I don't know. I can't sleep. Officer Riley, who I was starting to think of as my only ally in law enforcement, spoke gently. Mrs. Patterson, do you have any weapons in the home? Just Harold's hunting rifle. It's locked in the safe upstairs. I haven't touched it since he died. The officers exchanged glances. Miss Torres made notes on a clipboard. Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to recommend a voluntary psychiatric evaluation, just to make sure you're okay and to provide documentation that you're mentally competent. Documentation for what? For the restraining order hearing. If you want to prove you're not having a mental health crisis, an evaluation from a professional will help your case. I realized she was trying to help me, in her own way. Okay, I'll do it. Where do I go? She gave me information for Dr. Caroline Fisher, a psychiatrist who could see me that week. After they left, I called and made an appointment for 2 days later. But things got worse before they got better. The next morning, I woke to find my car tires slashed. All 4 of them. I called the police again. They filed a report, asked if I had any enemies. I told them about Brandon and Amber, about the escalating conflict. They asked if I had any proof it was them. I didn't. That afternoon, I received an email from my sister Margaret. She'd written instead of calling, which told me everything I needed to know about her willingness to actually hear my side. Eliza, I've been thinking about Brandon's concerns. He's right that you need help. I'm writing to suggest you consider moving to an assisted living facility. There's a lovely one here in Arizona. You'd have company, activities, people to look after you. It might be time to sell the house and simplify your life. Let me know if you'd like me to send you information. Love, Margaret. My own sister wanted me to sell my home and move to assisted living. At 67, because my son had convinced everyone I was losing my mind. The appointment with Dr. Fisher was my last hope. If she declared me mentally unstable, I had no defense. No one would believe me. Brandon would win, and I'd lose everything. I sat in Dr. Fisher's office, a pleasant room with soft lighting and comfortable chairs, and waited for her to tell me I was crazy. Instead, she asked me to tell her what had been happening. So I did. I told her everything: the theft, the gaslighting, the smear campaign, the vandalism, the restraining order, the family turning against me. I talked for 90 minutes straight. She took notes and asked occasional questions, but mostly just listened. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to write in my report that you show no signs of dementia, psychosis, or paranoid delusions." I started crying. "You believe me?" "I believe your account is consistent, detailed, and rational. You're experiencing severe situational stress due to familial betrayal and financial exploitation, but you are not mentally ill. Your responses are appropriate to the situation you're describing. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. You're not crazy. You're being gaslit, which is a form of psychological abuse. What your son is doing has a name. It's called financial exploitation of the elderly, and it's more common than people realize." She handed me several pamphlets about elder financial abuse and gave me resources for victims. She also wrote a detailed evaluation that I could use in court. For the first time in over a week, I felt a tiny spark of hope. The restraining order hearing arrived too quickly. I met Jason Miller at the courthouse, clutching Dr. Fisher's evaluation in my hands like a lifeline. "I've submitted the subpoena for the Bloomingdale's footage," Jason told me, "and I have the police reports from your break-ins. It's not as much as I'd like, but it's something." Brandon and Amber arrived with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Amber was dressed conservatively, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup. She looked innocent and frightened. Brandon wore a suit I'd bought him for his college graduation, and seeing him in it made my heart ache. Judge Martha Brennan presided. She reviewed the petition quickly, then looked at me over her reading glasses. "Mrs. Patterson, your son and daughter-in-law are requesting a 6-month restraining order against you, claiming harassment and threatening behavior. How do you respond?" Jason stood. "Your Honor, my client denies these allegations. She's the victim of theft and financial exploitation by the petitioners." The judge looked skeptical, but gestured for us to proceed. Brandon's attorney called Brandon to testify first. He took the stand, and I barely recognized him. His voice shook with emotion as he spoke. "Your Honor, I love my mother, but since my father died 3 years ago, she's changed. She's become suspicious of everyone, but especially of my wife. She's accused Amber of trying to steal from her, of wanting my father's money, of trying to turn me against her." "That's not true," I whispered to Jason. He squeezed my hand and shook his head slightly. "I needed to stay quiet," Brandon continued. "Mom has been forgetting things. She'll put something down and then accuse us of taking it. Last month, she called me at 2 a.m, panicked, saying someone had stolen her jewelry. I drove over, and she just moved it to a different drawer. She didn't remember doing it." None of this was true. I'd never called him at 2 a.m. I'd never accused them of taking jewelry, but he was saying it under oath, looking sincere and sorrowful. "Your Honor, my wife and I have tried to help. We've suggested she see a doctor. We've offered to help her manage her finances, but she gets angry and accuses us of trying to control her. And then, last week, she came to our apartment, banging on the door, screaming at us. We have doorbell camera footage." Brandon's attorney played the video. There I was, at their door, clearly upset, my voice raised, but the audio was edited. It showed me looking aggressive without the context of what they'd said to provoke me. You couldn't hear Amber's smirking comments or Brandon's manipulation. Just me, looking out of control. "After that incident, the threatening texts started," Brandon said. "Messages saying she was watching us, that we'd regret betraying her, that we were ungrateful. My wife was terrified." His attorney displayed the text messages on a screen for the judge to see. All sent from my phone number. All threatening. All fabricated by Brandon using my phone. Amber testified next, playing her role perfectly. She dabbed at her eyes with tissues as she spoke about how hard she'd tried to build a relationship with me, how I'd rejected her from the start, how frightened she was now. "I just want to feel safe, Your Honor," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to come between Eliza and Brandon, but she sees me as the enemy, and I don't know what I did to deserve that. Now I'm afraid to go out. I keep thinking she's following us." The judge looked at me with what seemed like pity. Then it was my turn to testify. I took the stand, my hands shaking. Jason asked me to explain what had really happened. I told the truth. All of it. The stolen credit card, the Bloomingdale's incident, the security footage showing Brandon giving the card to Amber and telling her to spend my money. Mrs. Patterson, the judge interrupted. Was any money actually taken from your account? No, Your Honor, but only because the bank's fraud department stopped the transaction. So there was no actual theft, technically speaking. They tried to steal from me. The only reason they didn't succeed is because the bank caught them. Brandon's attorney stood. Your Honor, there's no clear evidence of who possessed that card or how they obtained it. My clients deny any theft. What we do have clear evidence of is Mrs. Patterson's harassment of my clients and her threatening messages. Jason stood quickly. Your Honor, those messages came from Mrs. Patterson's phone, which is currently in Brandon's possession. She reported it taken. He's using her phone to send messages to himself, framing her. That's absurd, Brandon's attorney said. Why would my client do such a thing? To cover up the theft and make Mrs. Patterson appear unstable, Jason replied. The judge held up her hand. Do you have proof that Mr. Patterson has Mrs. Patterson's phone? I jumped in. He took it from my hand, Your Honor, in my living room. But no one else was there to witness it. The judge looked at the psychiatric evaluation Jason had submitted. She read it carefully. Dr. Fisher says, you're not mentally ill. That's good. But she also notes you're under extreme stress and experiencing familial conflict. Mrs. Patterson, have you considered that perhaps there's been a misunderstanding? That your grief over your husband's death might be affecting your perception of events? I'm not misperceiving anything, Your Honor. My son stole from me, and now he's trying to make everyone think I'm crazy so he can get away with it. The judge sighed. She looked tired, like she'd heard too many family disputes and didn't have the energy for another one. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm granting the restraining order for 6 months. Mrs. Patterson, you are not to contact Brandon or Amber Patterson. You are not to go within 500 feet of their residence or place of employment. I'm also ordering a follow-up psychiatric evaluation in 60 days and scheduling a review hearing at that time. Your Honor, please, I started, but she cut me off. Mrs. Patterson, I'm trying to help you. If you're right and there's no mental health issue, the evaluation will prove that. If there is an issue, you'll get the help you need. Either way, some separation between you and your son seems prudent right now. She banged her gavel. Case closed. Outside the courthouse, I stood in the parking lot, trying to process what had just happened. Jason put his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Eliza. Sometimes judges get it wrong. But this isn't over. We can appeal, and we still have the credit card fraud investigation. Across the parking lot, Brandon and Amber were hugging, celebrating their victory. Amber looked over and caught my eye. She smiled, a small, triumphant smile that no one else could see. Then Brandon actually waved at me, a mocking little gesture. They'd won, Tyler called that evening. Mom, I heard about the hearing. I can't believe you tried to fight the restraining order. Tyler, they're lying about everything. The judge didn't think so. The judge ordered another psych eval. Mom, maybe it's time to accept that you need help. I don't need help. I need my family to believe me. I believe you think all of this is real. That's what scares me. Until you get proper help and accept what's really happening, I think it's best if we don't talk. Tyler, please don't do this. But he'd already hung up. Both of my sons had abandoned me. Margaret called next. Eliza, I spoke with Brandon after the hearing. I'm sorry, but I think you need professional help beyond what Dr. Fisher provided. This situation has gotten out of hand. When you're ready to accept reality and get proper treatment, call me. Until then, I can't be part of this. My entire family had turned against me based on Brandon's lies. I sat alone in my house, legally prohibited from defending myself, labeled as the problem, isolated from everyone I loved. The next day, checking my bank accounts online, I found something that made my blood run cold, small withdrawals I hadn't authorized. $50 here, $75 there, $200 from another account, going back 2 months. I'd been too preoccupied with everything else to notice, but now that I looked carefully, I could see it. Unauthorized charges on credit cards I still possessed. Restaurants near Brandon's apartment. Gas stations. Small purchases that wouldn't trigger fraud alerts. I added it up. Over $5,000 slowly drained from my accounts. The Bloomingdale's attempt had just been the most brazen. He'd been stealing from me in small amounts for months. I printed out all the statements and highlighted every unauthorized transaction. But what good would it do? Everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone thought I was the problem. That night, I sat in my dark living room, looking at Harold's photograph. The word greedy was still on the wall behind me. I hadn't had the energy or money to have it painted over. I failed, I whispered to the photo. I failed our son, and now I'm going to lose everything. I thought about giving up, about just giving them the money they wanted, about moving to Arizona and letting Margaret find me an assisted living facility, about accepting the role of the confused old woman they'd cast me as. It would be easier than fighting, easier than being alone, easier than being called crazy by everyone I loved. I sat there in the darkness, at the lowest point of my life, and wondered if I had any fight left in me at all. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with all my bank statements spread out in front of me, tracing the pattern of theft, 2 months of systematic stealing. Small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts. Always restaurants or stores near Brandon's apartment. Always when I wasn't actively checking my accounts. At 6 a.m, my landline rang. An unknown number. Mrs. Patterson? This is Dorothy Hayes. My son Marcus is the one who vandalized your home. I'm calling because there's something you need to know. I sat up straighter, fully alert. I'm listening. Marcus told me the truth after the police scared him. A man paid him $200 cash to spray paint your house. Marcus was afraid to tell the police the whole story because the man threatened him. But I won't let my boy's mistake be used to hurt an innocent person. The man was definitely your son. Marcus saw him again and wrote down his license plate number. She gave me the number. I confirmed it against Brandon's registration. It matched. There's more, Dorothy continued. Marcus heard them talking, the man and a woman. They wanted the vandalism to make you look unstable. The woman said something about pushing you over the edge. Would Marcus testify to this? Yes. He's ready to tell the truth now. He's a good boy who made a bad choice, but he doesn't want you to suffer for it. After we hung up, I called Detective Raymond Cooper, who'd been assigned to my credit card fraud case. I hadn't heard from him in days, but now I had new information, real evidence. Mrs. Patterson, he said, when I explained about Marcus and the license plate, this changes things. If we can connect your son to the vandalism, that's witness tampering and evidence manipulation. Combined with the credit card fraud, we might have a real case here. I also have evidence of ongoing theft from my bank accounts. Small amounts, but it adds up to over $5,000. Bring everything to my office this afternoon. Let's see what we have. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. Hope, small and fragile, but real. At Detective Cooper's office, I laid out everything. The bank statements with highlighted unauthorized transactions, Marcus Hayes' testimony and the license plate number, the timeline of events, Dr. Fisher's evaluation, copies of the restraining order petition showing Brandon's lies. Detective Cooper studied everything carefully. Mrs. Patterson, we need to prove your son had access to your financial information and physically made these transactions. Do you have security camera footage from the bank? I didn't think to ask. Let's go ask now. At the bank, Miss Patricia Walsh was initially hesitant, but with Detective Cooper's badge and official request, she pulled up security footage from the ATMs. We went through 2 months of recordings, and there he was. Brandon, using my ATM card. 7 different occasions. Clear footage of his face, my card in his hand, cash being withdrawn. That's it, Detective Cooper said. That's proof of ongoing theft. He's been systematically draining your accounts. We went back to his office, and he made calls. To the Bloomingdale's security team, requesting the official footage with audio. To the prosecutor's office, explaining the case. To a fraud specialist who analyzed the pattern of theft. 3 hours later, Detective Cooper had built a case file. Mrs. Patterson, we have enough to charge your son with identity theft, financial exploitation of an elderly person, fraud, and conspiracy. These are serious charges. What happens now? Now I need to ask you something. Are you prepared to press charges against your son? Because once we do this, there's no going back. He could face significant prison time. I thought about Brandon as a little boy. The way he'd hold my hand crossing the street. The way he'd run to me when he fell and scraped his knee. The way he'd cried at Harold's funeral, leaning on my shoulder. But I also thought about the spray-painted wall, Harold's ashes scattered on the floor, the lies told to my family, the isolation, the gaslighting, the systematic destruction of my life. Yes, I said, I'm pressing charges. Detective Cooper nodded. Then we moved forward. I called Jason Miller and told him about the new evidence. He was thrilled. Eliza, this is exactly what we needed. I'm filing an emergency motion to dissolve the restraining order. With this evidence, we can prove Brandon's been lying all along. I also needed a better attorney for the civil case. Jason referred me to David Morrison, who specialized in elder abuse cases. David was in his 50s, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Eliza, he said after reviewing everything, you don't just have a criminal case, you have a strong civil case. Financial damages, emotional distress, defamation. We're going to take them for everything they're worth. I don't want their money. I want the truth to come out. You'll get both. The truth and compensation for what they've done to you. That evening, I called Susan. I think I'm going to be okay, I told her. I have evidence. Real evidence. Susan came over immediately, and I showed her everything. The ATM footage, the witness statement from Marcus Hayes, the pattern of theft documented in my bank statements. Oh my God, Eliza, you were right about everything. I'm so sorry I doubted you. You came back. That's what matters. The emergency hearing for the restraining order was scheduled for 3 days later. Jason, David, and Detective Cooper would all be there with evidence. The tables were about to turn. The night before the hearing, I cleaned Harold's ashes from the carpet as carefully as I could, crying as I worked. I put what I could recover in a small velvet bag. I couldn't bear to leave him scattered there any longer. I'm going to fight, Harold, I whispered. I'm going to make this right. For both of us. I looked at the spray-painted wall. Tomorrow, I'd either be vindicated or destroyed, but at least I'd be fighting. And fighting felt a whole lot better than giving up. The courtroom was packed. Detective Cooper sat in the front row in uniform. Marcus Hayes and his mother Dorothy were there. Susan sat right behind me. Jason and David flanked me at the table. And I felt protected for the first time in weeks. Brandon and Amber arrived, confident in their expensive clothes. But when they saw the crowd on my side, when they saw the detective and the Hayes family, their expressions changed. Amber whispered urgently to their attorney. Brandon's face went pale. Judge Brennan entered, and we all stood. She looked surprised by the turnout. This is a review hearing for the restraining order granted 2 weeks ago. Mr. Miller, I see you filed an emergency motion? Jason stood. Yes, Your Honor. We have new evidence that fundamentally changes this case. Evidence that proves Mrs. Patterson has been the victim of financial exploitation and fraud, not the harasser. Proceed. What followed was the most satisfying 3 hours of my life. David Morrison presented the evidence methodically, like building a case brick by brick. First, the ATM footage showing Brandon using my card repeatedly over 2 months. The judge watched in silence as my son's face appeared again and again on the screen, withdrawing my money. Then the bank statements, highlighted to show the pattern of theft. Over $5,000 in unauthorized withdrawals and charges, all traced to businesses near Brandon's apartment. Then the Bloomingdale's security footage with audio. The judge leaned forward as Brandon's voice filled the courtroom. Sweetheart, use Mom's card. She's got about $150,000 on it. And Amber's response, laughing, she won't even miss it. Brandon's casual reply, and if she does, we'll just say she's losing it. The judge's face hardened. Marcus Hayes testified next, describing how Brandon paid him to vandalize my home, how he'd heard Brandon and Amber planning it, how they wanted to make me look unstable. He provided the license plate number. Brandon's car. Detective Cooper testified about the phone records showing texts sent from my number after Brandon took my physical phone, about his investigation revealing Brandon's previous theft from an employer 2 years ago, about the pattern of financial crimes. Dr. Fisher's evaluation was entered into evidence, clearly stating I showed no signs of mental illness or cognitive decline. Finally, David presented the most damaging evidence of all: the restraining order petition itself, comparing Brandon's claims to the documented facts. Every lie highlighted, every fabrication exposed. Brandon's attorney tried to respond, but there was nothing to say. The evidence was overwhelming. She whispered with Brandon and Amber, and I saw panic in their faces. The judge looked at Brandon. "Mr. Patterson, do you wish to testify?" Their attorney tried to stop him, but Brandon stood. He took the stand, and I watched him try to lie his way out. He claimed he had permission to use my cards, that I'd told him he could access my accounts. David cross-examined him ruthlessly. "Did you have permission to use your mother's ATM card at 2 in the morning? She told me I could. Did you have permission to tell your wife she had $150,000 to spend at Bloomingdale's?" Brandon stammered, contradicted himself, tried to backtrack. "Did you have permission to send threatening texts from her phone after you took it from her?" Did you have permission to hire Marcus Hayes to vandalize her home and desecrate your father's ashes?" Something in Brandon broke. Years of entitlement and resentment poured out. She was being selfish. She has all that money sitting there doing nothing while Amber and I struggle. She wouldn't help us. She said no every time we asked. She deserved it. The courtroom went silent. Brandon realized what he'd just done, confessed to everything in open court. He looked at his attorney, who had her head in her hands. Judge Brennan's voice was ice. "Mr. Patterson, you just confessed to multiple felonies in my courtroom." Amber jumped up. "Your Honor, I want to make a deal. I'll tell you everything. This was all Brandon's idea. I was afraid of him. He pressured me into all of it." She threw Brandon under the bus completely, trying to save herself. Brandon stared at his wife in shock and betrayal, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Judge Brennan dissolved the restraining order immediately. "Mrs. Patterson, I apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. You've been the victim here all along." She issued an emergency restraining order against Brandon and Amber, prohibiting them from contacting me or coming near my property. Then she looked at Detective Cooper. "Detective, please take Mr. Patterson into custody." 2 police officers approached the defense table. Brandon started crying, begging as they handcuffed him. "Mom, please. I'm sorry, don't let them do this. I'm your son, please." I watched them take him away, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of victory, but tears of grief for what my son had become. For the little boy who'd loved me, who'd been replaced by this entitled, criminal stranger. Outside the courthouse, news crews were waiting. Local reporters had gotten wind of the story. Son arrested for stealing from elderly mother. David Morrison gave a brief statement protecting my privacy while confirming that justice had been served. Marcus Hayes approached me, his mother beside him. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry for what I did. I know saying it doesn't make it right." I looked at this young man who'd made a terrible mistake but had found the courage to tell the truth. "You helped me when no one else would. You told the truth even though you were scared. That takes real courage, Marcus." Dorothy Hayes hugged me, crying. "Thank you for not pressing charges against my boy. Thank you for giving him a second chance." Tyler called that evening, his voice shaking. "Mom, I saw the news. I watched them arrest Brandon. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I abandoned you when you needed me most." "You're here now," I said, my voice gentle. "That's what matters." "How can you forgive me so easily?" "Because you're my son, and I love you." Brandon fooled everyone, Tyler, even a judge. "You're not to blame for believing him." "I'm flying in tomorrow. I want to be there for you. I should have been there all along." Margaret called next, sobbing. "Eliza, I failed you. I'm your sister. I should have known you'd never lie about something like this. Can you ever forgive me?" "You're calling me now," I said. "You're here now. That's enough." Susan came over that night, and we sat in my kitchen drinking tea like we'd done 1,000 times before. "You fought back," she said. "Even when everyone doubted you, even when you were completely alone, you kept fighting. Where did you find that strength?" I thought about Harold, about his last words to me before he died. My husband used to say I had steel in my spine I didn't know about. I guess he was right. The legal process took months to fully resolve. Brandon pled guilty to avoid trial and was sentenced to 2 years in prison with 5 years probation. He had to attend therapy and substance abuse counseling. They discovered he had a gambling addiction, which explained where their money had gone and why they were so desperate for mine. Amber got probation and community service in exchange for her cooperation. Her wealthy family quietly settled the civil lawsuit to avoid scandal. I recovered every penny that had been stolen, plus significant additional damages. The criminal case made news. Other families reached out to me, sharing their own stories of financial exploitation by adult children. I wasn't alone. This happened to more people than anyone wanted to admit. A year later, my life looked very different. Tyler visited every month, and our relationship was stronger than ever. He'd brought his children, my grandchildren, and they filled my house with laughter again. Margaret called every week and had visited twice, staying a full week each time. Susan remained my best friend, closer now than before because we'd weathered the storm together. I'd repainted the living room, erasing the word greedy from my wall. I'd taken Harold's ashes to his favorite fishing spot and scattered them properly, with ceremony and love. His photo still sat on my desk, but now it made me smile instead of cry. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the prison. Brandon's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. "Mom," it began. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I see now what I did. The therapy here has helped me understand how entitled I'd become, how I convinced myself I deserved your money more than you did. I destroyed everything because I felt like the world owed me something. I was wrong. About everything. You were right to turn me in. You were right to fight back. You saved me from myself. Maybe someday I can be the son you deserve. But I understand if that day never comes. I'm sorry, Mom. For all of it. Brandon." I read the letter 3 times. I didn't respond right away. Maybe I would someday, maybe I wouldn't. But I kept the letter, because despite everything, a small part of the little boy I'd raised was still in there somewhere. Healing took time. For both of us. I learned something important through all of this. Real love isn't about protecting someone from consequences. It's about holding them accountable so they can become better. Brandon had to face what he'd become. Prison was harsh, but maybe it would help him find the person I'd raised him to be. I also learned that I was stronger than I ever knew. When everyone doubted me, when I had no one, when the legal system failed me at first, I didn't give up. I kept speaking the truth. And the truth doesn't care if you're alone. It doesn't care if no one believes you. The truth just waits. It waits for the moment when it can finally be heard. Harold had been right about me. I did have steel in my spine. I survived the worst betrayal imaginable, not from a stranger but from my own child. And I didn't just survive, I fought back. I won. People ask me if I regret pressing charges against Brandon. They ask how a mother could do that, but here's what I tell them. You can't enable someone's destruction and call it love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their actions. Otherwise, you're not helping them. You're helping them hurt themselves and others. I'm 68 years old now. I've been betrayed, gaslit, robbed, and nearly destroyed by my own child. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm at peace. Because I learned the most important lesson of all. Your value doesn't come from other people believing you. It comes from knowing your own truth and having the courage to defend it, even when you're alone, even when the whole world says you're wrong, even when it's your own child against you. Stand up, speak the truth, fight back, and never, ever let anyone make you doubt your own reality. That's how you survive. That's how you win. That's how you find peace. I look at Harold's photo on my desk and smile. We did it, honey. We raised a fighter. And somewhere inside me, I feel him smiling back. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had someone close to you try to manipulate your reality? Have you ever been gaslit by someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to stand up for your truth? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it touched your heart or made you think about the importance of standing up for yourself, please hit that like button. It helps this story reach others who might need to hear it. And if you want to hear more stories about resilience, justice, and the strength of the human spirit, subscribe to this channel. There are so many more stories to share, and your support means the world. Please share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Someone who's being doubted, someone who's fighting their own battle, someone who needs to know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing in the power of truth. And remember, no matter what you're facing, no matter who's against you, you have more strength inside you than you know. May you always have the courage to speak your truth, the strength to stand alone if you must, and the peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.